There's all these
I need to
settings in
grab
here I
my
didn't even
Bible.
realize in microphone modes. Hey, so this week we are introducing a new face into our podcast family here, which is Cullen Capehart. He is our new director of children, family, and youth. Which I'm going to unilaterally change your title at some point.
Oh no, we definitely should. We 100 Family Plus.
Family Plus, yeah, director of fun.
Oh, that's good. It needs to be an acronym or something, you know.
Yeah, it should. If it well, it's
Family, kids, and youth.
Presbyterian.
FAQ. FAQ. No, not good. We'll work
No, we
on
need to
it.
be careful with the acronym. Catherine has a really long title too, so we're gonna figure out how to shorten those. Because I, for one, can't ever remember what they are. But essentially, Cullen works with our youngest folks, and it's by the time this will have come out, it will be like 6 weeks since you've joined us.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, is it all that's cracked up to be? You having a good time?
It is. I've felt really at home here. I feel like everyone's so welcoming and kind. I really just like have been impressed how quickly I feel comfortable. Where it's like I was doing the VBS things and just going, okay, cool, this thing, and people, and talking, and then it was like I was like, this is my home church and it's great. And I was like, Colin, you've only been here 3 weeks. It's not you're like you're really committing too early. Like you slow down.
Don't come on too strong. No.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
It's all good. They're just really welcoming people. I genuinely like every church says it's welcoming, but I have experienced this church to be a very welcoming and congregation. So I'm glad that that's been your experience so far. And you're in the midst of planning for the fall.
Yes, I am. I have a lot of good plans. I just finalized my curriculum for at least the younger kids. I might, you know, the 4 and 5 group, I might play around with that a bit, but I've decided on that. It's going to be a lot of work because I'm going to write some of my own stuff and give some of my own games and activities. But I'm really excited for it because it's going to be a blast. There's much more to plan though. There's a lot of youth group stuff to plan. There's a lot of um, Montreat's coming up, so there's a lot of different things to think through.
Yeah, I don't know that people always understand how much children and youth ministry is planning. It's not. There's a lot of like
Oh yeah,
relationship building and FaceTime, but most of it, the bulk of it, especially in the summer, is doing the work of organizing and all that stuff.
the FaceTime is so good. That's definitely like the highlight for me in the job. Just getting to walk alongside the kids and help them kind of walk through this faith. But I think, yeah, organizing is fine. Like it's all right.
It doesn't
It's
bring
just
you
something
joy.
you have to do to make sure it's something you have to do to make sure things go well. That's
Yeah.
that's the way it is.
Well, it gives you the freedom when you've organized well. It gives you the freedom to be in the moment when you're with people.
Hmm.
Because if you're having to plan on the fly, like you can't really engage with people as well, I think.
I think that's a great point.
I have a friend she has a folder that she calls her organization folder. And it's a folder
Oh,
that she uses to organize all of the other things that she then organizes. It's like an
oh, so
index.
it's like super the
Yeah,
the meta folder, the meta organized
it's the
folder.
meta folder.
Nice.
Yeah, the meta folder. It's like she indexes like what is where and like which Bible verses. Like it's crazy. It's the
Oh wow.
crazy, like
Well,
amazing.
one of the things that like I'm gonna try to do, I'm not sure if it's gonna work, but I'm gonna try to organize all the like toys and stuff, and then like have them numbered in the curriculum, so they're actually like, oh, you can go find it here at this specific location.
Uh,
That's my hope. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, the thing about organizing, especially with things that other people touch, is it's going to get moved. So
yeah,
let's hope it goes well. And hey, if you're listening to this podcast, please put everything back exactly where it's supposed to go.
yeah. That's the words of wisdom from all church employees everywhere. Please just put it back. My undergraduate degree was in stage management, and that was what we were taught was like the show Bible, or the prompt script, which is what the stage
Yeah.
manager puts together. should be such a reflection of the show that anybody, if you got hit by a bus, is what I was taught. If you got hit by a bus,
No,
anybody else could pick up the prompt script
that's
and read it
that's
and be able to run the
malarkey.
show.
There's no,
Swear to
you
God.
can't, you could give me any script and I could not run a show. Like, it would not work. It could be like Shakespeare himself shows up and passes me Macbeth, and I'd be like, sorry, I don't know how to make people do anything.
Okay, so I'm guessing there's some presumption of knowledge that it will be someone in the theater who picks it up, not random stranger on the road. But
Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah. Well, speaking of complexity and picking up instructions, I think it's always we. I recorded a podcast earlier today with Catherine, and we were reading Paul, Ephesians, so a letter from Paul, and um, how important it is to remember that when Paul wrote this, he was not expecting people to read it 2,000 years later.
Yes.
That,
Oh my
that
gosh,
is,
so important.
he's not writing it with a mind that this is going to become eternal truth
Nope.
forever and
Nope.
ever, and that we're only reading half of the letter, that we only are reading one side of the conversation. So whenever you
Totally.
read Paul, you always have to take into account that there's a situation and a church on the other end of this letter that you don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so always remembering to imagine what is happening with the recipients of this letter. Like, what is prompting the person who wrote this to write this letter and send it? Because there had to have been a problem presented. They're not just writing it for fun. Um,
Yeah, 100%.
which is interesting for letters. The difference with
One of the
Hebrews is, okay,
Oh, I was just saying one of the interesting things is like how expensive it would have been to write these letters. Like, this was quite an ordeal to send them. So whenever, like, on one end it's really amazing that like we have them and we're going, man, he put all this effort in and all this passion into this letter to send it to people so they could speak it out to the crowd. At the same time, we also don't know if there were other letters, and we have no idea. There could be. These are just the ones that made it. And I think that's really intriguing to me because it's again, you have to have a bit of humility when coming to this stuff. You're right. We don't exactly know everything about the context.
well, in context in the Bible is so important because we're removed from the the situation in which it was written, the context it was written. I mean, even in the Gospels, where we're seeing different reflections of how people experience Jesus, I think it's really important to try to understand who the authors are and what situation they're writing into, because
Yes. Yeah.
it reveals so much about why they experienced Jesus in this particular way and why Matthew emphasized different things than Mark did. Um, and so it's worth doing the work as best we can.
100%. Yeah.
So my opening question is always, what do you know about the book of Hebrews?
Yeah. I don't know a lot about the book of Hebrews. Yeah, I really don't. I know you have some really good lessons in it. I know it's a very deep book. I know it's a complexly written book in the original Greek, but I don't know much about it as like as a whole. I've not really spent much time studying it. I know there's some angel worship going on near the beginning, but that's about the end of my knowledge.
It does glorify angels at the beginning. Yeah. So the book of Hebrews was
Or
written.
it critiques it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Um, the book of Hebrews was written probably later, probably closer to the end of the first century. Um, it is most likely not a letter, it's most likely a sermon. So, what they think was this was something like a stump speech. Like we think about politicians going from like place to place and they give a version of the same speech, essentially. Like, this is this is what I'm going to do to help improve affordability or whatever their particular message is that day. And so the prevailing theory right now is that it was a sermon that was being given by a circuit preacher who would show up at your congregation and preach the faith, and then they would go to a different congregation and preach a version of, if not the exact same thing. And so it was given around all around to converts who were Jewish. So that's why it's called Hebrews. The book is written to Jewish converts to the faith, to Christianity. Um, and there was a belief for a long time that it was written by Peter, but as you said, the Greek is way
Oh,
too complex for that.
I've heard Paul. Apparently, there's like a tradition around Hebrews that it was written by Paul, and I'm like, Paul is always writing his name on everything. Like he's like, this was me. Like I don't get the has to be written by someone we who was a disciple or knew Jesus in some way. You're like, that's I don't get that.
Well, and I think it's sort of like the same reason why there was a tradition for a long time that Moses wrote the first five books of the Bible. I think it's like a borrowed
Right.
authority. Like it's not
Right.
enough. Like it can't be anonymous because we need to know who the person was who wrote it in order to decide whether they have the authority to have written it in the first place. And so
Mhm.
it's all the letter, everything in the New Testament that's not the Gospels, people like to assign to Paul because it gives it that air of Pauline authority. But even the letters that have been called Paul's letters are vanishingly few that we can authenticate were actually written.
Because he has one moment, is it at the end of Galatians when he says like, see this writing with my own like handwriting. So there's at least something where he's like some sort of brutish writing that he does. But that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the manuscripts. They have a manuscript that seems to be original, and the Paul's. It's sort of like John Hancock on the Constitution. Like it's written like a kindergartner would write it. You know, like it's clearly it's unlikely that he wrote the rest of the letter because it's in a different handwriting
It's
and script
yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. Yeah, none of the authors of these books, except for a few, do we actually know who they are.
Yeah, yeah. Which Paul, ironically, talking about Paul is one of the few that we have like the seven undisputed letters from Paul. So those kind of ironically the ones that get talked about the most, but we actually do have the best evidence for like, no, he probably wrote those.
He probably did, but we have no idea who wrote the Gospels. Um, we don't know who. We don't know that Matthew wrote the Gospel of Matthew, for instance, like, or in who Matthew was. Like, is Matthew the tax collector? I don't know. Like, that's it's um, all of this is to say, does it matter if we know who the author of something is?
Oh, that's a great question, especially with Hebrews. I don't think it does, in my opinion. I think a lot of this is how do we carry on the Christian tradition? How are
Hmm.
we a part of that message? And if you looked at the Gospels, for example, that's a big one that people want. They probably care more about that than any of the other ones about if it was really written by who it says at the top according to this, according to Matthew, according to Mark, according to John, according to Luke. Even if it is 100% true, there's a gap between when the experience happened and when those works were written. And it
Hmm.
has to be there. There's no way around it, even if it's very small. Now, it's probably bigger because even if you're like, well, of course it was written by them, they had to learn to write at a certain level, which would have been tons of time then. And is not very likely at all. Obviously, scholarship is like that's probably not what happened for these very poor peasant fishermen. Like it's just not a thing. Not this high level of Greek. But like I think to me it doesn't affect things much because what we're talking about is a way that we were able to capture the tradition at a certain point, and we're carrying on with that. That's just my thoughts, though.
Yeah, I think it's clear that whomever the author was, when the folks who were putting the Bible, who were, I don't like saying putting the Bible together, but were consolidating on these are the books that are the most accurate, meaningful reflections of how we understand God to be. Um, in the fourth century, were reflecting on the books that were obviously being used because there are, like you said, there are other books around, there are other things in existence. Um, but these were the ones that they thought most accurately reflected the theology that we needed to carry with us, that were the most useful for our edification. So I'm not sure that it does matter
Ooh, yeah.
the origin of them so much as the fact that the folks who were the closest to it at the time found these to be the most beneficial. So there's clearly value to them. Either way, I guess is
To
what's
me,
helpful.
they're invaluable. Like they're
Yeah.
extremely valuable. They're just like one of the ways that we can connect to Jesus. Um, that's indispensable. Like it is just it's
Yeah.
there and it's powerful. Now that doesn't mean I ignore the reality of the scholarship on the subject.
Yeah. I mean, and we brought up scholarship a bunch, but I think it's helpful to remember that scholarship, as we think about it now, has only really been intensely done for the last 100 120 years, 130, 140 years. I mean, there was some discussion about Calvin, John Calvin had um, did do a commentary on the Bible, but that was one of the first. There was not that was not a thing that they did at the time. It was not really like you don't. There were letters that were written by the church fathers and throughout history that were meant to be explanations of the Bible, but as far as like taking it apart and understanding the mechanics of it and how it works and that kind of stuff as a literary document, that's relatively recent in the development of the church.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Very recent.
So it's helpful, it's good information, it's a tool, but I don't want it to get in the way of. I always trying to not let it get in the way of the theology that is there. Like sometimes I think it can get in the way of what we
Mm.
actually can discover from the scripture.
Mm. Mm. I definitely think I think I agree with you. Like I think like if you knew all the spectrum of scholarly stuff, I don't think that would necessarily bring you 1 inch closer to God.
Yeah.
It I don't think that's how it works. It's our faith is not about the knowledge you have. Um, it's about the heart change that came out of the text, out of
Hmm.
reading the stuff. And to me, that's pretty powerful. I just think it is a useful tool. It's something that helps us clarify truths. Um, that also scholarship changes. You never know. Could be
Yeah.
wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, and things have changed since I was in seminary. Like things that are being taught now were not the same things that my professors necessarily taught me. Um, there's a lot less
Oh
focus
wow.
on trying to find. When I was in seminary, it was right at the end of the search for the historical Jesus and the Jesus seminars work, where they
Uh
were
huh.
trying
Uh huh.
to see if they could figure out exactly who the historical figure of Jesus was. And um, so there was a lot of focus on like trying to distill like the actual person. And my guess is that they're not talking about that quite as much. I mean, you may have learned about it, but I don't think that's the focus of the scholarship
We
anymore.
we don't talk too much about the historical Jesus, surprisingly. Although I haven't had all my classes, so maybe it'll come up. It's definitely a subject that I've looked into some because I like it. Um, But I do think you're right. I think it's a little past. It's a little over now. We talk a lot about the sources, who authored things, uh, where did they come from, the context around them. So there's a lot of conversations around that, but not as much about the search for the historical Jesus. I think in part because it kind of failed. Like it did kind of. It wasn't quite like the idea that you could perfectly capture Jesus in a bottle and be like, yes, we got him. It
Yeah.
it, it didn't go well. It trust me, there's a lot of really good scholarship on it. Like it is good stuff and it's really interesting. But it's kind of a foolhardy. It's like a we believed we could do this, and it,
Yeah.
it just bit off more than you could chew. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, I think, a little bit of a search for something that's beyond our control. And it's not really the point of the gospel anyway. The gospel is not a historical document. It's not trying to teach us, show us the TikTok of Jesus's life. That's not, you know, um, it's how they experience Jesus and who they experience Jesus to be and the implication of what that has for our
Ooh,
life. And that's the point. And if Jesus didn't say
yeah.
one word that's in the gospel, that's not really the point for me anyway.
Mm.
If if these are not authentic quotes of Jesus, like I don't know that it doesn't impact my faith anyway, in any way, because that's
Ah,
not how I
I think
experience Jesus anyway.
I think it for me, that's an interesting point. I've never thought about it that way before. I think for me, when you're talking about like authentic phrases, I do enjoy like the process of trying to find them. There's like several criteria. That's probably a little too long to go into in this video, but there's like several criteria for trying to figure that out. And it is really fun to see because then you're like, oh, like there is like even the most skeptical of scholars are like, this is probably something Jesus said. And it makes you go, you just have a real grounding in like, there's a realness to this that I like. But I think your point makes me go, oh, it almost disconnects us and makes us feel like we're less a part of our faith by trying to like scissor our way to like having a specific like this is something Jesus said, versus going let's not tear apart something that someone did put together for us.
Well, I do think they are authentic witnesses to what Jesus said. So I want to be careful. Like, I think Jesus said something like the things that are reflected in the scriptures, you know.
Oh yeah,
So, you know,
this just wasn't like video recorded. Yeah.
right, exactly. It's not going to be like there was nobody with a dictaphone being like, you know. And when I tell stories about my life, you know, I may quote myself, but there's not going to be very few people can directly quote themselves, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so
And this is like a modern like biased to like thinking we have these factual realities about everything. We do not have these factual realities about everything. We're running off mythos all the time.
yeah.
Like and we as modern people hate that. We're like, no, I believe only the facts and it's right down that lane. And you're like, no, no, stop. You're a human being who has takes shortcuts and like lives in narratives and narrative shifts and change. Like totally, I think, yeah, that we we fool ourselves.
Well, I love that because we're in this in between spot right now. I think historically, as far as we're shifting from modernism to postmodernism, and modernism, yeah, you're right, is
Mm.
very fact oriented. Like, here's the, it's machine. It's like, can we put A into B? And the Jesus seminar was a product of that historical memory, that historical modernism of can we to separate all this and just figure out what is truth and what is not truth and all that. And I think the movement amongst younger generations into this postmodern thinking of how much our narrative defines what truth actually even
Yes, yes.
is
Yeah.
very helpful for how we read the Bible. And in a lot of ways, Hebrews is a postmodernist letter,
Ooh, okay. Yeah,
because
expand on that.
it is not it's very complex because it uses a lot of imagery and metaphor and descriptions of things to reveal a deeper truth. And so you very rarely will read something in Hebrews and be like, well, that makes sense. Like,
That's so
from
true.
an objective point of view, it's trying to evoke a feeling, as good sermons do. And so it's not meant to be like,
Mm.
um, it is a theological treatise. It's a very theological book, but it's not like Paul, where Paul's going to be like A plus B equals C, and there's like a very Roman rationality to it, where it's, you know, um, a systemic theology kind of thing. Whereas Hebrews is written, probably was preached by somebody from the Near East, maybe from Egypt. There's some belief it was preached from Apollos, who was from Egypt, and so it has a whole different approach to how it understands the work of theology, because it's not trying to do it in this Roman Greek style of logic and rhetoric and the way Paul was trained. It's doing it from a way of symbolism and mysticism and metaphors and descriptions and things that help you get a sense or a feeling of a deeper truth. And so it's a different mind change altogether.
Mm.
So you have to
Mm.
like that kind of work in order to really enjoy Hebrews. You have to kind of dig that uh, deeper work to find the truth under it. I mean, even the most famous passage from Romans, which is our favorite, which is the, so let's run the race which God has set before you because we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. That is not immediately clear what that means, right?
Totally.
Paul would say something about perseverance, and that, you know, that God is, through the power of the Spirit, we've been given the energy and the courage and the bravery we need in order to endure the hardships that start to come. And it's a very logical, like, complete statement that makes sense. Hebrews uses this description of a race that we're running, and that um, we have this cloud of people who have gone before us that help support us. It's the same theological idea expressed in
Mm.
a different kind of context.
I love that so much, and it goes to show just the variety that is in the Bible. Like there's so many different voices and different ways of expressing the gospel, or different ways of expressing perseverance of our faith. Like, and no, there's no right or wrong. There's no like this
Yeah.
is the way you have to do it. This isn't the way I have to do it. We're all on this journey together, and we're finding our feet along it.
Well, which one of the reasons that we I think, are drawn to different gospels. So I think one of the most revealing way you could find out how somebody approaches their faith, is to ask them which gospel they like. If they can only read one gospel for the rest of their life, which one would you be
Oh,
drawn to?
only one.
Yeah, because I think that
Are you
reveals a lot
asking
about
me?
it. Yeah, I'm curious.
Oh no. I don't know. I do love them all. I think because they all have so many good parts that you're just like, am I really gonna give up Matthew chapter 5 and
Right.
like not have that? I'm not the like I'm not drawn to Matthew that much, but like that is a banger of a chapter, and that would be sad to lose. Luke is really good too. I think I'm gonna go with Mark. I think Mark is special. Which is I don't think an answer many people would give. I think Luke is a close second. Or is John the close second? I don't know. There's a lot. This is a hard one. I don't like this question, but I'm gonna go Mark. I'm gonna go Mark. Mark to me gives me something. Uh, his theology is brilliant and subtle, and and subtle to the point of like you wouldn't notice it unless you were sitting down and reading it a couple times. So
Yeah.
I think I really appreciate Mark. So I think I would go for Mark. But I'm sad because I'm missing out on like I don't have an infant. I don't have
Right.
Jesus' birth story at all. Like, what am I?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean about me, Liz?
Or a resurrection if you're going with the shorter version
Yes,
of
I don't
John.
either.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
there's beauty in that though. There's beauty
yeah.
like the way that Mark lays out his last chapter is very interesting and very beautiful and meaningful and especially Jesus's response. My God, why have you forsaken me? It says a lot about where Mark is. It says a lot about where the Jewish people were at the time
Hmm.
around people who were abandoned, feeling abandoned to the Roman Empire, who had just come in and crushed them under the imperial boot. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like actually that I would not regret that because I actually like what Mark's doing there. And I think there is a bit of like a wink, wink about it in terms of to a resurrection idea. But
Yeah.
but you're right. I would be out of it. I don't know. What is yours?
It's so hard. I think I would go with John.
Yeah,
I
and that
love
makes sense.
John's
John.
poetry.
Mm-hmm. I
And
think John also is like so. It gives you a better basis for Christianity as like as a modern idea. Like Mark doesn't really
yeah,
give that to you.
John feels like such a modern gospel. And I think I like
Mm.
how it speaks to Jesus' humanity, the humanness of
Mm.
Jesus. And I think we lose something in Matthew, especially, where Jesus is almost forbidden from having any human experiences at all. Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and I think for me, the beauty of the Jesus moment is that willingness to become human. Because you have to think about how much a God has to give up in order to become human. I mean, there's like these stories in Greek mythology and things where the gods become human. It's never out of choice, it's always a punishment. And so this idea of a God who chooses to enter into the human experience to reclaim it and to understand it. It's like God realizes that God created something and then doesn't really understand it. Like
Mm.
it's sort of like when you have kids, um, you've created something and you've set it loose into the world and you know it because you've been around it for your entire life, but you don't know it. Like you can't enter
Mm.
into their head and they see their world from their experience. And man, sometimes you wish you could, as a parent, be like, what? Where did that? I like, why? What is your brain doing right now? Can I just enter into your brain and
Yeah.
figure out why you made that
Yeah.
decision? Um, and so
Yeah.
I think the idea that God would be willing to do that, um, so that God could become closer to us in relationship with us is a beautiful
Mm.
metaphor.
I
Yeah,
think you're so right. It really is.
which actually leads us quite handily. Did you see that smooth transition? Uh, Very professional into Hebrews 13, because we are at the end of Hebrews. Hebrews has done all its work, and this is the last thing that it wants. The last moment, the last paragraph that the preacher is giving them for what they want them to remember as they go away. Um, at the end of the day. And so why don't you read verses 15, 16, 17, and 18?
All right. 13, 15,
Or
16,
15, sorry,
17, 18.
15 to 18.
Yeah. 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 Through him, then, let us continually offer a sacrifice of praise to God. That is, the fruit of lips that confess his name. Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls and will give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with sighing, for that would be harmful to you. Pray for us. We are sure that we have a clear conscience, desiring to act honorably in all things.
Mm. So what do you hear in that passage?
Oh my goodness. Some things that like pop out to me immediately are fruit of the lips that confess his name. That's really some interesting metaphor there. Um, and then do not neglect to do good and to share what you have. I think that like coming right after kind of talking
Mhm.
about the fruit of the lips. That's interesting too.
And
And then
that's
I
what
think
God, yeah, go ahead. No, keep going.
17 just seems confusing to me. I'm not sure about 17. That one's going like, what's going on? 17,
What's
18? Not
happening?
sure.
Um, yeah. So this idea of the sacrifice of praise is always an interesting concept to me that what God wants from most of all from us is not anything more than saying good things, like cheering God on, kind of. Like this idea of um, God is pleased with the sacrifice it requires from us to say good things and to praise God. Um, but I'm confused. I'm curious why that's a sacrifice.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like that should be something that requires you to sacrifice in order to say to confess God's praise from your lips.
My initial thought is perhaps there's a cultural slash imperial sacrifice going on,
Mm,
that like there's a sacrifice of you're being different than your fellow. You said this was written to the Jewish people, to your fellow Jewish members who hold to a different belief about God than you do. So there's some sacrificing community. You've had to
mhm.
split your from your old community, your old ways of thinking. The other could be, if it's, I don't know if this is like, there could be some sacrifice in terms of your Roman community as well, where you're like, oh, I'm not going to be worshiping all these different other kinds of gods. I'm going to be different. I'm going to have to like stick to a more um, one God situation. And so there could be some sacrifice there, and isolation, and minor persecution in that. That's what I would guess, but I don't know.
Well, I think it's important to remember that Christianity is one of the first religions that did not require some sort of actual sacrificing. So every
Ah,
other religion in the Near East and the Mediterranean and I mean the Celtic religions, almost every world religion at this point. Um, I mean, maybe there's something happening in like the far east of Asia, like in Japan, that you maybe I'm not totally clear on when Shintoism and that kind of stuff came into being, but Christianity is likely one of the only religions in the entire world at this point which does not require the participants to actually offer some sort of animal sacrifice. And so um, I'm wondering how much of work that Hebrews is doing is in this context of like you don't need to, because Paul talks about this all the time. Like, no, you don't need to go to the altar and sacrifice anything anymore. Jesus did that for you. And how much of a mind shift that must have been when your entire existence, all you've heard about is in order to please the gods, you need to go and offer two turtle doves in return for your sin. Like, I think we've
oh yeah.
lost how radical of a statement that actually is.
Yes, totally we have. I think you're right. I think also I recently did a project on beneficiaries in the Roman Empire, and part of that whole mentality was like the term reciprocity, where someone would give you something and then you'd have to give them something back, either of equal or better value.
Oh,
So there's a whole
interesting.
system of this benefact among the elites, mostly, not really. The poor people would have this idea, but you wouldn't have the same level of wealth to just be giving gifts around. People were very poor back then.
Yes.
um, but like yeah, so this idea of reciprocity, I wonder if that kind of ties into uh like I forgot kind of where I was going with this.
Oh,
What you were
sacrifices and
talking about. You were, yeah, sacrifices of like, oh, that this is a free gift. That this is
yeah.
like that's a radical idea. Like this is a gift without you having to give something back. God is not expecting anything of you. And to us, it is like, sure, we get free gifts all the time. We have Christmas. It's like, it doesn't, no, 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 no. This is a huge deal. This would have been like cultural breaking kind of situation for many Roman citizens and people in the Greek time period.
Well, that's something we struggle with even to this day. I mean, I think as Protestants, um, we often don't think about this sacrificing language because we just don't use it. But um, certainly for people who grew up Roman Catholic, uh, the idea of sacrifice is this very central part of their tradition because that's what's happening. Like they're every Sunday,
Mm,
the priest is
mm,
re-sacrificing Jesus on the altar. That's why it's called an altar. I think the radical claim that Presbyterians make is that it's a table. And this is not a sacrifice. We're not
mm,
sacrificing Jesus. This is a celebration of this moment where Jesus revealed the truth of who he was and what it meant to be part of the community of God. That's a very different framing. And I think even within Christianity itself, we're not real good at like thinking about the fact that we don't have to offer that sacrifice anymore. Like that's not something that's asked of us in a physical way. There's no physical component that is demanded by God in order for us to be saved. And we really struggle with that.
mm.
And that
Yeah.
praise is a voluntary response.
Praise is a voluntary response. Yeah. Sacrifice of praise to God. I think another, this might be slightly a tangent, but to me, this does remind me of C.S. Lewis's book, Reflection on the Psalms, which is a really good book all about praise and kind of his struggle with understanding the Psalms. Um, but there's like definitely this idea of like, for me, sometimes praise gets seen as this bad thing. Like we shouldn't praise people. We shouldn't be like, "Wow, you're so great," because of idolization. We're worried about like, and I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Especially as reform people, we're like, "No, no, 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 don't do that." But but I do think we kind of get it twisted a bit. Like praise in and of itself is actually a good thing. Like it is good
Hmm.
to praise things that are good. Like that's the whole point. And so that's why we praise God, because God is the highest good. In the same way that you might be like, well done on that. Like I might be like, Liz, really great sermon. That was an awesome job. Like that's a good thing to do. We should be sharing in that community of praise. Um, not going overboard, obviously, but like to a reasonable degree. It should be, we should enjoy each other, and then of course we enjoy the highest good.
Let me just say that you're welcome to give me as much praise as you want to at any time. That's always welcome. Please come up to me, tell me how good I am. No, I think I think one of the other things it does for me is the idea that our main job as believers is to offer a sacrifice of praise to God, reorients us in the way we think about God. I think so much of, and I think this is more true in Western forms of Christianity, but I think we experience so much shame as part of our faith, and we experience so much of God as a taskmaster or as somebody who's constantly sitting in heaven, deciding if we're going to make it or not, or if we're in the book of life or not. And um,
Mm,
a lot of Christianity is so punitive um, and behavior oriented. And I think it's challenging to us have to reevaluate and shift our brain away from seeing God as someone who is to be feared and to be afraid of, and into something that is a God, experiencing God as someone who is worthy of praise is a different.
mhm.
And I think that's primarily in the white church, because I think in the black church they talk about praising God. They offer praises to God and
Oh,
blessings to God all the time.
that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I think that was definitely a big shift for me in my spiritual journey, was moving away from kind of it's not even that I thought God like had a problem with me, that God was angry with me. It was like I had a problem with me because of how I
Mm,
thought God saw me. Does that make sense? Like I
hmm.
thought God was like that I was this like little terrible puddle that like just kind of deserved to get stomped on all the time. And then God was
Yeah.
like, no, you don't deserve to get stomped on kind of thing. But like you do kind of in reality. Versus like if you really think about it, the deeper reality is God's vision of you. Like how
Hmm.
God sees you is the truest reality you could get to. And God loves you. Like God does not see you as a thing that's trash and deserves to be thrown away. God loves you so much. And I think that's like realizing that helped me get away from more of that shame mentality, that view of myself that was really just self-destructive and not actually
Mm,
it didn't help me praise God. It made it harder to praise God because I was constantly down on myself instead of being reflective of God.
yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, I grew up in a Presbyterian context, so there was not a lot of shame. Shame was not a huge part of um, my experience of church growing up. I had friends who were in other traditions where they always were feeling ashamed of themselves. They were always feeling guilty about something. Um, and so I almost have experienced that as an outsider a little bit, but I do think Presbyterians have historically been um, wary of praise as a concept. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
we've been, I don't even know what the word, it's not like anti praise, it's just a distrust of good thing, feeling good, too good about yourself. I don't know. Like, I don't know that I can put my finger on it, but there wasn't a lot of joy either growing up. I wouldn't say there was like, in my experience at church, that there was an experience of people as happy or
Mm,
like you definitely didn't clap in my church growing up. Like that was not,
yeah,
even
that's
when
a
the little kids sang,
controversial thing.
right? Yeah. Like if the little kids sang, you could maybe smile.
Yeah.
Right?
'Cause
Or,
all the
whatever.
praise all the praise is due to God is the idea. And I get the argument. I
Exactly.
think I've heard people's argument about it and I don't want to like step on anyone's toes. I just personally don't buy it. I really do not. I think like I think everything can be bad. Like
Yeah.
everything can be turned crooked and messed up. But like at the same end, everything can be good. Everything was made for us to be good. God made things for us to thrive in.
Yeah.
And you can do this with any subject you want to. Um, and I think praise is one of those where it's like especially reform people really latched down on it. They did not want to idolize things. I totally get it. It's the context that like the history it came from, but it's been 1500 years. It's been 1300 years. We can let it go.
I
We can
think
let
we
it
can move
go and we
past
can
it.
go back to like a more historical understanding that like there's a balance. There's a balance
Yeah.
and we don't need to go left or right. We can just stay right in the middle.
I've come to appreciate authentic signs of appreciation and joy in this. I mean, I'm not. There are times and places for us to be serious and to be sad and to experience all the full range of human emotion in the worship experience. I really believe that. Like, sometimes you should walk away from service and you should feel guilty because like nobody's perfect, and sometimes we need to be
Yeah.
called to account for what we've done. But I think sometimes we just need to walk away and be like, you know what, I feel good about myself today. I feel I feel that God is excited for me and who I am and like supported and wonderful. And I think there's enough in the world to make us angry and upset and frustrated. And I think it may be in this time and place in the church, we're being called to reclaim this idea of joy and praise as an important part of who we are and a
I think you're
challenge
right.
to us.
I think you're right. I think the authenticity is the key word there for me. People are being fake on either end. Like the people who are like, "Wow, everything's great," and just like over the top about it. It's there's like this level of like you have to be put on because that's what you're supposed to be as a Christian.
Mm,
Or there's this level of like, "Hey, you can't praise anyone else. Like this has like be careful with your words. You don't want to make anyone like overly egotistical." Because that's what you have to do as a Christian. That there's this, I think there's a bit of a artificialness in trying to force yourself into a specific box, and that's I don't think that's what God's calling you to do. You're called to be
Yeah.
a transformed nonconformist. Like there's like a level of like there's a transformation that's happened in you, and there's going to be change and development. But you're not asked to stop being Liz. I'm not asked
Yeah.
to stop being Cullen. Like we're still ourselves.
Yeah. This reminds me of a funeral I did, and the grandmother was a member of my church. She had I'd only met her like twice. It was really early on in my call at that church. And before she'd had a stroke, I went and visited her many more times after she had the stroke. Well, I didn't because it was making her upset, but that's a whole different story. She'd had a stroke and she'd lost track of it mimicked dementia in some ways, except for it was a sudden
Mhm.
onset because it affected her memory part of her brain. So when went to visit her, she couldn't remember who I was, and it stressed her out. So I had to
Oh,
stop going because it was literally like causing her to have panic attacks because there was the stranger in her room and she didn't know who it was. It's terrible and tragic. So, but I ended up um, helping with her funeral, and I remember standing there watching as they played Carrie Underwood's "How Great Thou Art." I don't know if you know that version of that song. It's
I
beautiful,
don't know Carrie
but
Underwood's, but I do know the song.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful song. I've used it in other contexts, but in this context, it was really interesting to me as a bystander to watch because everybody else was very solemnly sitting there, and one of the granddaughters got up and raised her hand, and you could. It was
Mhm.
almost like a Pavlov's dog situation. Like when you hear the song, this is how you have to react. And she was stomping her foot, and she was like, it was very much like very stereotypical, like what you would see on like TV, kind of like what a praise worship song would look like or is supposed to look like. Um, and I think that what struck me is it felt very performative. And I think it would have been fine. I would have I had no issue with it, whatever. She can do whatever she wants. It's you can experience grief however you experience it. It's just a memory I have of feeling um feeling like this was a performative moment for her. It was not an authentic expression of what she
Mhm.
was actually feeling because it didn't make sense with any of the other ways that she was participating in the service, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
like she was crying and weeping and like very sad, and then the song came on, and all of a sudden she
And
was
like a
like,
turnaround,
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
very
yeah.
kind of like bipolar-ish
Yeah,
turnaround. Yeah.
it did. And I wonder if there aren't times in the church where we set people up to to believe that there are certain ways they have to behave in a particular situation. Like there's only one right way to experience this thing. Um, and if you hear this song, the only response is you have to get up and you have to do this and you have to dance, like, and um, or
Like
times
you
where
suddenly
I've
have to
been,
stop being remorseful.
yeah, like you can't experience grief during the song because you're required to feel praise. I don't know. I don't know what about it just sparked that memory for me of is, is there long term damage being caused by this idea that you can't experience God in an authentic way in this moment, or what didn't
Well, I
feel to
know
me to be authentic.
at least for me, it's like people can stop really relating well whenever you stop being authentic. There's a lot of self-reflection. I do this all the time, right? I'm very like in my head a lot of times. So it's not like I'm beyond this. But like for me, it feels like if you're trying to put yourself in a box, you actually can't really care for anyone else. You're too busy like trying to fit into that stereotype. And it's not even a stereotype that probably has existed for that long. you know, like that form of worship like it has not been around that long. But I think I think that doesn't mean like I do feel like we experience change, right? I do feel like we do. I think we experience a lot of growth and change. Um, but I think that's different than being authentically you as well, right? Like
Yeah.
being authentic, there is change in authenticity. Like that's why you can change your mind, right? Like again, another thing that like people don't like. People don't like you to change your mind. They want you to be consistent, and you're like, I'm a human being. I'm not consistent.
Yeah.
Um, so like I think when it comes to particularly praise, I think it's a tough one, honestly, because people. part of the liturgy, part of like sitting in a service is being forming. So I actually think I could see why, like the Pavlov kind of experience to me, like I actually see why people would do that. I think we can
Yeah.
be conditioned. The question is, are we being conditioned in a way that's like helpful and life-giving, in a
Mm,
way that allows us to go, this is a different scenario and I need to recognize the reality of losing someone. I need to recognize the reality of I'm hurting on the inside, and it's okay to be different in that in this scenario. Um,
yeah.
or is it like a sort of like, is it are how are our liturgies actually bringing life to us? They need to bring
Yeah.
life rather than bringing like a staleness. And I feel like that's a maybe I'm trying to capture a bit of that feeling you were talking about.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's a good reflection. I think sometimes their job in worship formation is to give people language for experiences that they have that they can't put language to themselves. And so we teach them how to be how to experience things through the ways that we choose to model that in the worship service. And so in many ways I think she was responding in the way that she was taught to respond. And this is the language, the body language literally of how she incorporated this experience for herself. And so it may have been an authentic witness for her. And because it's something I wouldn't have chosen to do in that situation, it felt inauthentic to me, which makes me like, which is another thing of like authenticity is not the same for everyone. Just because it's my experience and my unique witness to
Mm,
how I experience God in this situation doesn't mean that because you experience it differently, it makes you less authentic. It just is a different expression.
yeah, 100%. Which I'm interested in, like the the kind of the fruit of the lips, right? Like this whole conversation to me is a little bit like, what are the fruit of the lips? What is the thing that we're producing? Because the Bible is really interested in like the
Hmm.
words you use, and like honestly, it's surprising how often the Bible's like that's actually really really important.
Yeah.
And I think part of it's because that's how we imagine the Genesis story of God kind of begetting through breath, begetting through words. Um, but anyways, that's not my point. Is that like, yeah, I just think there's something interesting in that language. That's really interesting words used here by the author of Hebrews.
Well, I think it touches into something that we know is true, which is this idea of a mantra, or the things that we
Oh.
say are really what forms us as human beings. It's not so much what comes into us. I think we're capable of filtering the information that comes into us, but what we choose to put voice behind is often the framework, the what actually creates reality for us. I mean, there are people who are interior processors and they do all of their work inside their head. But I think for most of us, we discover truth in conversation or in the
Mm,
expression of what is happening inside of us. And so our words do have creative power in and of themselves. I mean, I think that's why John uses that language in the beginning of John. That the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. That our words in and of themselves are holy. And so we have to be very careful, I think, um, with the words we choose to use because
mhm.
those are the ones that are creating reality. Going back to your
Yeah,
idea about
yeah.
our narrative shaping our experience.
Yeah, I mean, if the Holy Spirit lives inside of you, the words coming out of you are pretty important. Like, what do they mean? What do they mean to people? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The tongue is a sword. What defiles
yeah,
you is not what goes into you; it's what comes out of you. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah. That's what really that's been coming up a lot in our Bible in our sermon
has
series
it
this
really?
summer. Yeah, and I didn't
Oh,
expect that, but like how much the way we choose to act on our internal feelings has become a real theme for
mm,
all of the sermons so far. And maybe that's just my sense of where we are in the moment of in our culture, where I think words have become cheap because they're so easy to use and they're so throwaway. Like the idea
mm,
of things like Snapchat or Signal or WhatsApp, where your words literally disappear. Like they don't even exist anymore. You could just throw them out into the world, and in 2 days they're gone. And the
mm,
impermanency, the appearance of impermanency of them, and yet the impact that those words have, even if they disappear from the device in which you're holding on, in your hand, the person who receives them and has read them is not going to be unchanged just because the words disappear or they're gone. Um, it's like there was a
Oh yeah.
phrase um, the youth were using years ago. I don't think they do this anymore, but it used to, they would say, I'm just saying. And they would say something really mean and they'd be like, well, I'm just saying, as if that gave them permission. Or JK, they would go, JK, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Um, as if that erased the words that they used before it. Um,
Hmm.
I think that really challenges me, has always challenged me, I think, since social media has become a thing, that our words have appeared to become cheap and
Mm,
like something we can throw away. And yet the Bible continually tells us the words that we use are the most important part of who we are.
mm, mm. Yeah. Wow. I think we can definitely critique ourselves, and this is like one of the moments where like we can critique the world. Like the world is you see it everywhere, and the anonymity of being
Mhm.
online has created a huge problem. Um,
I actually, on that
people
anonymity
just
thing, I actually just read a study that said that people are meaner when they use their real names.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy that they did a study and they did comparisons. So they set these people up on a fake social media network that they thought was real, like it was a new thing, and they just wanted to try it out, right? And for the first like 3 months, they were anonymous and they got to make up their usernames and all this stuff. And then the last 3 months of the study, they had to use their real names and they had to interact. They were encouraged to interact in the same way that they did before. So it was set up from this behind on the backside the same. And what they found was that people were actually meaner when they used their real names than when they had an anonymous username.
Wow.
Isn't that
Wow.
interesting? I think what anonymity does is allows bots to become a larger part of the conversation. And so you're not
Yeah.
even I'm curious how many people on the other side of things are actually people.
Well, I just read a news article. There are more AI bots online now than humans. So
Yeah.
it's we're already here, and we're already living in the dystopia.
It's here.
So
Ah!
the answer is get offline. Like
The answer is
really
get along.
seriously, get
Yeah.
off of it. It's not if it's not I don't know, I don't want to be a grandpa here. Don't if you can use it in a way that's okay for you, you use it that way. But I do think um it seems to bring less joy into my life than it does bring no, it seems to bring more problems than it brings joy into my life. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, not conducive for a good mental health by any means. That said, find other ways to be connected. Don't also
Yeah.
be the person who's like, I never check the news and I never know anything about anything. Like that's not our responsibility here. We want to be connected to the world, in the world, but not of the world kind of situation here. Like
Yeah.
don't again, don't fly off the handle.
Well, talking about grandpas, I was on Facebook back when you had to have an ed.edu uh,
Mhm.
email address, which was back in the early days of social media. And it did change from its original intent. Like if you were in the first group of people who were on Twitter, like it was a really good place because it was smaller and there were like you did know the people generally that you were interacting with. So I do think there's a limit to how many people we can meaningfully interact with in a human way. Like we're not meant to interact with 6 billion people in an unfiltered stream of consciousness thing. But
Well, I think it also just like we dehumanize people on the screen, which makes sense because they're literally on a screen. But
yeah.
like it means a lot of your identity is wrapped up in the conversation you're having and winning that conversation. Versus
Hmm.
if you're meeting with someone every day and you're experiencing them as a human, the conversation is a lot more wrapped up in the relation between the two of you.
Yeah.
Um, versus like the relation between yourself, the screen, and how you conceive of yourself.
Yeah. And I think how you conceive of God too is important. I think that's why,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love that people have the resource of online worship because there are folks in our congregation who cannot make it to worship for whatever reason, or they're traveling and they still want to engage with worship and all that. And I think that's fantastic that they can do that. I do think it's dangerous to only consume worship online
Mhm.
because I think you need that relationship with other people who are seeking faith. Um, who are trying to become better disciples of God, because that's we need that accountability factor. But I think we also need the relationship, and I think we need the expansion that being in conversation with other people gives us. It's harder to go to extremes, and it's harder to dig into um, points of view and um, frames of mind and get stuck into them when you have to deal with other people who maybe have a different way of viewing and talking about things. And I think it's good for us to have that experience. And maybe that can be done online in conversation with in a chat room with a small group of people or whatever. Um, I'm open to that idea, but I do think it's important to be in relationship with people. I don't think you can just experience God through a screen.
Oh, I hope not. No, I was actually watching a video recently, really just actually listening to it on the subject. Oh no, it wasn't. Sorry, this is a different podcast I'm thinking of. But in it was like talking about the reality that like, um, are we like, especially younger generation, are we just experiencing our entire faith on the screen? This is the holy post, so like people know, but
Yeah,
yeah, the reality of like, are we just as a generation growing up and going, my faith is retweeting something and then that's that thing, like I watched something, I post about it and I did my job kind of situation. And I think it's a problem in the wider world. I think we are not living ethical lives anymore because we are busy being trying to either a be ethical online or b being unethical online, and the flow between those two things. And it's like
yeah,
there are real people out there who really need your help, who need your love, need your care, need your hands and feet, and you're busy posting online. And like, I think
yeah.
the reality is like, this is not doing anything. Like we thought it was. I get it. Like we used to think that it was going to do something. It was going to impact people's lives. They were going to see that post you made and it was going to be this huge change for them. It's not true. It was this beautiful lie that we were told. The reality is we have to live in reality. And it's so sad to see, honestly, our faith being robbed of its potency. And
Hmm.
that means like I'm more on the soapbox than I ever have been because I think I've fallen into the trap. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the move1.org phase of life where everybody thought if you just signed the petition, you would really like change
Mm.
something. Um, yeah, or somebody said to me, like, nobody ever has been convinced by a perfectly worded Facebook post. That's not-
No, no, but I did it
your,
that one
yeah,
time.
that one time, like it doesn't happen. We
No,
have to be in
no, it
relationship
doesn't.
with each other. And I think that goes back to the language of sacrifice, that there is an element of sacrifice in faith, that we can't just
Mm,
receive God in a way that's comfortable and easy and doesn't ask anything of us. That there's always going to
mm, mm,
be a part of our faith that requires us to do, like you said, do something. It's help somebody, put something into action, even just sacrifice a word of praise, an intentional action of remembering how good God is in the moment. Like those things ask us to give up something of ourselves. And maybe that's the potency we lose when we don't have to experience God beyond the click of the screen that we're interfacing God with, because it loses that demand that God puts on our lives and hearts. I think it's lost in the translation.
mm-hmm. And it's like it's a demand to be fuller, to be virtuous. And I think virtue has become kind of this like, it's not quite dirty word, but not a great word for people, but it's just saying, how are you, like how are you becoming more? How are you becoming
Hmm.
mucher? How are you growing in gravitas? Like that is that is important. It's a part of what being human is. It's a part of being life, like having a life and then being really human. And I think a lot of our lives at this point are abandoning that. And it makes sense. It's just easier. It's just
Yeah.
easier. It's the easy way out. It's the tempting way out. Um, and I think I've definitely taken it. I think most people do. But it's worth it to try and be something, to really, like you said, sacrifice. It's worth it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't be hard for us to sacrifice our praise of all the things, but it really is. Like we're so stingy with those good words to each other and to God. And What would that look like? How would it reshape our entire viewpoint on our faith and on our lives if the first thing we did was say something good?
Right? Yeah. Now I'm being convicted. I need to praise God more. I gotta find it more.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that actually rolls off my tongue either. I don't think that's the first reaction I have in most situations.
Mm,
Um, and I have been with older people who have been in terrible situations, you know, who have had awful and terrible things happen to them. And the first thing they do is say, but God is good. And
mm,
I've always sort of rolled my eyes at that and been like, well, how can you say God is good? And maybe they're not saying God, maybe they don't feel it at that point, but maybe the practice of saying God is good, even in the midst of terrible things, helps us reframe those moments. And when we don't believe it, it leads us into belief at some point.
mm,
I don't know.
mm,
I have to stew. Gonna have to think about that for a bit.
mm.
All right, Colin, what's your takeaway for today?
Oh, my
One thing you're gonna
takeaway. Oh
walk
my gosh,
away.
there's
I know we've had a
so
wide
many good
ranging.
ones. I think my main takeaway is just be conscious, try to bear fruit in your language, and be willing to make a sacrifice. Be willing to try and lay something down. I think that's there's something to it. It's at least worth a try, you know.
I think my challenge is going to be this idea of praise that um, even when things are not going the way I want them to go, or people are not behaving the way that I want them to behave, or God is not giving me the thing that I'm asking for, what would happen if I led every conversation with a positive statement and not a negative one? It reminds me of Bonhoeffer in his book. Um, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget the name of it. Community Life, is the name of it. He wrote a book
Live
to
together.
Life Together. That's what it is. But in the beginning of it, his advice to the ministers that he's working with is, don't ever complain about your congregation.
It's good
And
advice.
it's great advice. I don't know any minister that's ever done that. But because we're humans and we get frustrated too. So I think that's my
My dad's given it a pretty good run, I'll be
has he?
honest. He really has.
That's
But
awesome.
I don't know if it served him quite as well as it should have, but yeah, he's tried.
I wonder how that would change my approach to conversations and to my thinking about things if I led with trying to find the goodness, the good of whatever it is. What's the
Yeah.
positive reason they're doing this and not just because they're being annoying or whatever? Yeah.
I think that makes so much sense. It's like it also just has a sort of grace to it, right? That like a presumption of goodness. I find a lot of the conflict we have is that it comes from a presumption of this is how they think about me and this is how
Hmm.
they're talking about me. And maybe it's true, but maybe it's not. And maybe like giving that grace can give more ground. And also giving that grace can actually transform the way they were talking about you. Maybe it was negative,
Yeah.
but like when you give that grace to the other person, it has this like healing factor that helps
Yeah.
you. It like can transform the way that person was thinking about it before and
Yeah.
retroactively.
Yeah.
Um, what is my favorite? I don't know my favorite Bible verse, but it's probably close. First Peter, you know, love covers a multitude of sins. Chapter 4. It's
Hmm.
it does. It really is surprising how much if we're stewards of God's varied grace, like we can. It's surprisingly transformative.
It very much is. And I think that's my challenge moving forward is to allow that to transform my heart and my mind. Um, so next week, Catherine will be back with us, but we're going to be in First Peter talking about Cullen's favorite
No.
verse. It's coming up. Um,
Oh
I
no. Okay, that's a
know.
little spoiler. You got this.
We're going to see
It's a great
Catherine and
verse,
I.
everyone.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I'm not going to be there, but you'll enjoy it. It's
Maybe we'll
good.
do a three-way and we'll see how it goes. But so that's coming up for next week, and we're going to be talking about the last in our appreciating series. The last thing we're going to appreciate um, is what is praiseworthy. What is it that we find
Mm.
praiseworthy? This week was talking about what is pleasing to God, and so That's the reminder that God, our praise is pleasing, what pleases God. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah. So
Well,
we'll
you know,
see
if you're
how
not
that
gonna do it for
goes.
any other reason, just do it because it pleases him, you know?
That's right, exactly.
There you go. There you
Because
go.
it's nice.
It's nice. It's a fun thing to do.
It's good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Colin.
Hey, thanks. Bye.
Bye.